welcome to a new video on AlHuTV. Today I have something to introduce to you. From the company Makera, here is a CNC milling machine, specifically the Carvera R. We're going to take a closer look at it. It's perfect for hobbyists, as well as for small workshops, and especially for those in the hobby sector who want to work on their own projects. For this we have a working area of 300 by 200 by 130 millimeters. There's quite a lot you can do with it. We can also rotate here. I've laid out a few things here. These are included in the delivery. Let's take a look at those first. And then I'll show you all the projects I've done with it. First of all, we also have a fourth axis included here. This means that for machining, we also have the option of rotation here. Of course, I tested that as well. We also have a laser head included. I tested that too. And of course, I also tested the CNC milling machine itself. It has 200 watts and 13,000 revolutions per minute. You can do quite a lot with that. I've machined plastic here, worked with acrylic, and I've also machined aluminum. And I also worked on this here. I think it's not wood, it's epoxy. I machined that as well. And so on and so forth. As I said, I tested quite a lot here. I'd like to present all of this to you here. As I said, the laser as well. It's a 5-watt diode laser. Of course, with that, you can also, when you're working on your project, add that final touch by engraving something with the laser. All of that is possible with this one machine. And now, in my video, we'll take a closer look at it. Yeah, I think so. CNC milling machine, I think precision is the top priority here. And of course, it delivers that. Down to 5 microns. We have a motor resolution here, which means repeat accuracy. That's not an issue here. This is a very, very high quality machine. I just have to say that. You notice it immediately when you work with it. It's extremely quiet, even the axes as they move and so on. It's really top-notch quality. Here we have the machine bed and there's a whole lot of accessories for it. As I said, we have an extra insert included here. With this insert, we can mill things out without having to mill directly into the machine bed. I think that's already familiar to most people. We have a whole set included here. I just want to show you this so you can get an idea of everything that's included here. So this is the set that comes with it. You open it up here. This of course gives you the option to clamp in anything, just like I just did, just so you have an idea regarding the scope of delivery. So with this we can definitely set up our tools here, preset them here. These are the ones that are included in here, preset. But we also have a whole extra pack included here. With tools, as I said, you can also set those up here as well. We've got something included here. We have a screwdriver included. We have screws included. We have the angle bracket included. We have a holder included. So everything you need is included. So you can basically, there are also a few spare parts included as well. So for example, a spare angle bracket and so on, it's all included. As I said, we have glass heads included, protective boards included, and so on and so forth. So there's absolutely nothing missing here to get started right away. You just have to point that out. And up here at the front, I've laid out a bit. There are 2 books included. You can read everything again in there. Everything. Once you have the machine, at first I was also a bit like, oh, where do I start? But it's described very nicely. On the outside here, there's a laptop holder on one side. Here I have a tablet holder. So I've connected a laptop here. That works just as well. The software from the manufacturer is included. And then you can basically get started because I don't want to talk around it for too long. Maybe some of you have already noticed the little R2-D2 I have here. I want to show it to you on camera because this thing here is completely self-milled. As I said, this is what the whole thing looks like when it's finished. You can see it very clearly. As I said, the acrylic is homemade, but also the base is homemade and even the aluminum is homemade. And before I show you how easy the whole thing works, we have a quick release fastener here. We can easily change our tools quickly here. Within a few seconds, the tool is changed here. We have a probing laser here that calibrates itself. And afterwards, it goes over a corner that is permanently installed on the machine bed and then afterwards on the workpiece. It scans the whole thing. Here you can set how many points you want to scan. You can set that in the program here. As I said, the program is also free of charge. You just do that on the side. And then once you've set everything here, the machine moves back again and you can clamp your tool here. The cleanup also happens automatically here. You just reach in and then, as mentioned, you can insert the tool again using this quick release fastener. And then you're ready to go. with our first part, namely the base, which I made first, here from our lighting, where everything is integrated here. The whole thing is, of course, running in time-lapse here. It's very hard to see because eventually all the chips are just lying in there. Nevertheless, I think it's very nice to see machining plastic is absolutely no problem here. It handled everything here without any issues, and it just looks nice when you watch it. It's impressive how independently the CNC milling machine, the Carvera R machine, works here. Yes, once the plastic part is completely milled out here, that's basically when it really starts. As I said, this was also included. This is the lighting. I modified it a bit because normally there's a direct USB-C connection here. I made a little cable for it. Of course, everyone can do it however they like. But as I said, the main focus here is on this aluminum. In the end, this is a switch that you can use here, but that's not really the point here. It's more about how to work with aluminum. It's exactly the same process here as well. It automatically probes here and then it basically gets started right away. The aluminum piece was milled out pretty quickly. Here too, the machine has absolutely no problems. It plunges in nicely. With aluminum, it's a bit slower, of course, but still, we're working really nicely here. Processing it piece by piece. It's also very nice to watch in time-lapse. It's just fun when the part comes together bit by bit like this. And as I said, it can be wonderfully processed here using the very simple and easy to use software to implement. So after I had finished the base and the aluminum piece, I moved on here. At some point, we also need our acrylic here since we want to make our R2D2. The whole thing was made from a single acrylic sheet, as you can see very nicely here again in the time lapse. Of course, we started by engraving the whole thing. And after he engraved the whole thing, it turned out to be a bit more work than I initially thought. Nevertheless, it turned out really nicely, of course. Here you can really see the precision, and it goes over everything piece by piece. Afterwards, he mills out the entire acrylic sheet, and then you can simply remove the whole thing. Yes, as I said, it goes pretty quickly, and after that you already have your finished component. The finished component, you saw it, looks like this, so the whole thing is really nice. So in the end, we've worked with plastic, we've worked with aluminum, we've worked with acrylic, we've done engraving and milling here, and we've already accomplished quite a bit here. And next, we thought I'd take an epoxy plate and mill out the whole thing here. I'll quickly show you under the camera what exactly that is. So this is a three-dimensional image. I think you can see it quite well. It's basically a ship. Here's a map and so on. A sword. So this is a kind of pirate ship. And I made this here from this epoxy. I think it's epoxy resin. It's a bit like wood, but whatever. In any case, this three-dimensional image here. This was also created here in a time lapse. You can nicely overlay how the whole thing starts here. As I said, the process is always the same here as well. It touches the surface and then afterwards it gets started. We use two tools here. First a milling cutter for rough milling and then afterwards a kind of centering tip. This one does the fine finishing here. Afterwards, as I said, a very nice three-dimensional image is created here. Yeah, I hope I've already been able to show you a bit of what the milling machine can do. Plastic, acrylic, aluminum, epoxy resin. All of this was created here relatively easily. Now I thought, well, we also want to try some laser work. I'd also like to show you the laser, at least as a time lapse here. It's a 5-watt diode laser, so you can really work on things like this MDF board without any problems, but you can also engrave various things in wood and similar materials. You can laser them just as easily. Afterwards, the image really looks impressive. I have to say, it turned out quite well. It's a very, very nice option to use this laser for this purpose. As I said, if you already have a laser, I would probably just use that instead. But having the option to laser here, especially if you don't have a laser at home, I actually find pretty nice. Of course, it's also possible to use other types of software here besides the proprietary one in case someone finds it a bit difficult. Fusion 360, for example, would be one of them that you can also use, so the machine here isn't completely tied to its proprietary software. Instead, you can really vary things here in case it's easier for some people. And finally, I thought, well, since I already have the rotary attachment, I at least want to clamp something in here and try it out a bit. That's exactly what I did. It really looks nice when this little 3-jaw chuck is in here. I clamped everything in here and then basically tried to machine my part here to mill it out. That worked wonderfully. You can also see here how well the whole thing works. It took a little while. I also kept cutting the whole thing into the hydrofoil because it all takes quite a long time. After all, it's a solid block and the machine. But as I said, to be honest with the customer, the result is really impressive. I've now milled out the whole thing on a large scale just to show how this relationship works. The result looks like this. So this is what it looks like now. I've roughly milled it out. As you can see, you can also refine it further. I just wanted to show you how simple the whole process actually is. And I don't want to withhold anything from you or anything about the rotation. This is how it looks. I've tried to include everything in this video, as I said, different materials. I've tested the flyer, I've tested the rotation. I also really like this emergency stop that I just tried out here. Of course, it's not supposed to be inside the machine. It should be outside. I just put it in for the demonstration now. So, the machine is amazing. We really have a lot of possibilities here to work very creatively. I just have to mention, we have 3 axes here. The 4th axis, the rotation, was also included here. So in my test, I think I was able to give you a picture of that as well. Here we have the option to extract directly. I didn't use that now. There's a connection for that on the outside here. That's included as well. We also have the emergency stop switch here. We can extract it really easily with a USB cable. You can connect it to a laptop, but you can also connect it to a tablet if you want. I found it a bit more comfortable to work on the laptop, which is also what I always do with the laser. Of course, everyone can use it however they want. But at the end of the day, awesome, really. I was totally positively surprised by how high quality it is. And you can also hear it when it's running. I really, really like it. A truly high quality CNC milling machine for home use. As I said, in terms of proportions for working, 300 by 200 is not exactly small, I have to say. And that's really, really cool. Yeah, I hope I was able to give you a bit of insight. As I said, we have a lot of accessories included. I think I showed you a bit of that. I didn't even unpack everything, just laid some of it out here. We have a lot of milling bits included. We really have the means to use the whole thing sensibly here. With the rotation, I find the 3-jaw chuck system super cool, as I said. Actually, it's a 4-jaw chuck, not a 3-jaw chuck. So it's a lot of fun. I just have to say that. And I really made my R2-D2 here with a lot of joy. It's just really exciting to watch every time. I hope I was able to give you an idea of it. As I said, I hope I included everything here. But if I forgot anything, then feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to answer it. Otherwise, everything is also linked, so you can read through it all again at your leisure to see what's included. And I think I was able to, as I said, give you an idea of it. Otherwise, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And until next time on AlHuTV.